family and friends. This is a photo and video documentation of Sam and my move from Queensland to Western Australia. We have traveled over 5,500 kilometers in 14 days through New South Wales, Victoria, and South Australia. To my mom and dad, hello! We're now in the same time zone. Before we left, we had to say goodbye to these two. They're currently being fostered by Jade and Angus. Thank you. I also had to say goodbye to the job that I absolutely loved. On our last day, the most stressful day of my life, but thanks to Megan, Luke, Gabby, Ate Arlette, and Tito Dave for coming around to help us pack everything and get us going. If you hear birds squawking in the background as I'm recording this, that's Conure, and you'll see him in a bit. We had to stop a few times on our way to Sydney. I must say the road from Brisbane to Sydney is fantastic, and it didn't feel like we drove for over 8 hours. Here's one of our stopovers to feed the birds.
Trying to get the water, but now I'm gonna get that. It was really beautiful, you missed it. Here comes the Mooney. Mooney.
We stayed at Ian's in Sydney for a good 2 nights rest. Thank you, Ian, Bianca. Next stop, Chiltern. It is a regional area close to the New South Wales and Victorian border. We stayed at Black Dog Olives, that's owned by Sam's uncle and auntie. They produce homegrown olives and fruits. Honestly, super yummy, and we got to meet their baby, Zina. Here are the birds again enjoying the stump in the sun. We unfortunately lost Tango on the 25th of April. Tango, you are forever missed. And this was when we were about to leave and Zin wanted to play with the birds. Next, we went to Daylesford. There you go. Oh! We were greeted and cuddled by Yofi, Obi, and Teddy. And then we had to leave again, now heading to Adelaide. Sunny got so bored and started grooming Sammy. And this is my good friend Elaine and her teaching Sam how to feed a toddler. The next day we had to head to Ceduna, which was 8 hours away from Adelaide but still within the South Australian border. I'll show you a clip of what the road looks like to my friends outside Australia. The highways towards bigger cities are mostly 2 to 3 lanes, but the road heading towards the Western Australian border was 1 lane all the way. So you drive next to large trucks and you'll have to overtake some slower speed vehicles.
Follow the rhythm of your breath for a few minutes. Little mini exercise.
I'm not really sure what we were listening to here, but for the majority of the trip we were listening to podcasts including Heavyweight, Something Was Wrong, and Dr. Carl. Along the way you'd also frequently see signs to watch out for wild animals crossing, but we didn't really encounter anything major. We finally arrived at one of the lookouts at the Great Australian Bight. There were a lot of caravans parked, but there wasn't really anyone at the lookout. And here's a photo of us. This was at another lookout. You can actually camp here overnight. I just saw it from aircamp.com. You can camp here to save on accommodation fees, but obviously there's no facilities like toilets and showers. It was also really windy, and from the reviews that I've read, it's really nice to watch the sunrise or the sunset from here. Sam and I were planning to camp out for one night, but we just didn't do it because we got so tired that we just wanted to arrive in Western Australia. We finally got to the border checkpoint. We had to pay and present an import permit for Sunny as he's not an Australian bird, had the car checked for drugs and plant material, and had to surrender the rest of the bird food, but thankfully they've given us some to last us a few days on the road. And finally, welcome to Western Australia! From here, small towns were around 150 km apart. We weren't planning to stop, but it got so dark and we saw a wild animal crossing the street. We decided to stop to avoid any encounters with larger animals that can wreck the car. bare trees that you can see here are most likely part of plant burning that happens from April to October in southern Western Australia. Plant burning reduces the risk of uncontrolled bushfires. We were under strict instructions to quarantine on our next 2 days of driving, so we spent most of our time in the car and only stopping for food and fuel. We had to install an app on our phone and it alarms at random times to check our whereabouts. This was at the Hayden Norseman Road, a major highlight of the trip. Thankfully, on the day that we were there, the road was dry. It is unfenced and animals can cross frequently. It was the most relaxing part of the road trip, away from any traffic. Throughout the 3-hour drive on this road, we only encountered 2 cars. It was the most serene drive, watching wild birds and the sunrise. We stopped at one point to enjoy the quietness of this place. The concrete road marks that we're driving towards a small town. At this stage, we were still 4 hours away from Bunbury. Throughout the trip, we've seen dozens of dead animals on the side of the road, but this was the first one that was still in the middle of the road. The right thing to do is to move the animal away from the road, as dead animals can attract scavengers and increase the chances of more collisions. The last few hours of our 14-day trip was just pure bliss. No dramas, just an easy drive. We finally saw a sign heading towards Bunbury. This concludes us documenting our biggest trip yet. We've been in Bunbury for 2 weeks as I'm making this video. So far, it's been good. We'll see how life unfolds. Thanks for watching.